Thanks for tuning in once again as we talk Ohio State football. And the Buckeyes are set to play in the national championship game against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And that's going to be a week from tonight. So let's get right back into talking Ohio State football with Kevin Noon from BuckeyeHuddle.com. Kevin, glad to have you back again.
Glad to be back because the fact that I'm back means they're still playing, and that means that I'm still traveling, and it's a good time to be a Buckeye fan.
Yeah, it is a real crazy journey since we spoke before the first playoff game. Everything that took place after the Michigan game, all of the ideas of what does Ryan Day have to do to save his job. Anything short of winning a national championship and all that kind of stuff. Well, it's there, Kevin. It's there for the taking. They're a heavy favorite to win the national championship. Let's start with Ryan Day. What do you think is going on in Ryan Day's mind as far as his future? And do you think now it's pretty set in stone that no matter what happens next Monday night, Ryan Day will definitely be back?
Ryan Day will be back as long as he wants to be back. I mean, do you get soured by the whole experience of a very vocal part of the fan base being as fickle as it is? That would be a hell of a way to walk out if you win the title and you go and say, I'm taking my ball and heading off to the NFL or something else at that point. But, I think he's certainly done enough to, at least satisfy Ross Bjork, Ohio State's athletic director, as, satisfy the board of trustees. There's going to be a segment of the fan base that won't be satisfied with anything. I mean, he could win 4 national championships all at once, and it won't really matter because they're all caught up on the Ohio State Michigan game. And I'm not downplaying the importance of that game, but they don't have a part in Ohio Stadium where they light up the numbers of the years that they beat Michigan. They do for national championships. But, all truth, being laid out there at this point, Ryan Day will be back, and the people who are the most critical of him will just have to kind of go back and lay in wait and see for the next time that he slips up, whether it's week 1 next season against Texas or against Michigan or against whoever. And they'll spring their trap at that point.
Okay. Let's talk about the game. And I mean, the score is definitely not indicative. Pick 6 at the end, could have gone to overtime. Not sure what Texas would have done if they had scored a touchdown. Probably gone to overtime, but you never know. It looked to me like it was situations where now that because we kind of talked about this, would they, if you put them on par, who's really better, more talent, Ohio State? If Ohio State plays to their capability, they're probably going to win the game comfortably. Well, they didn't play up to their capability. And therefore, maybe it was the other thing that we talked about is they played so good against Oregon that would they come back to the mean a little bit? And I think that's what happened. You had a couple of killer drives, penalties, not just Henderson, but, other players, holding, things of that nature. It just killed the drives and killed all early momentum. But yet they didn't seem like they were never in control. They didn't seem like they were panicking in any way, shape, or form. And I think that shows a lot of growth, and it shows you that they have championship material.
Yeah, the penalties were killer. I mean, 4 or 5 drives got stalled by penalties. I mean, everybody's going to certainly remember the one against Trevion Henderson because I think that was the one that was the most out of character. That's just not who Trevion Henderson is. We still don't necessarily have a good answer as to what was said or what was done that warranted that type of reaction, but holds and things of that nature certainly killed a lot of other drives. I think the thing is, you look at the first 2 CFP games in Ohio State, on some of those 50-50 moments, it was heads. And in this game, it was tails. And so much is built on momentum. And it could have really fallen apart because let's not forget on Ohio State's first drive where it scored a touchdown, Will Howard hit Cardinal Tate in the hands and he dropped that pass. And, they were still able to march and be able to knock it in. But, Ohio State's defense did such a tremendous job. Texas running back Jaden Blue had a couple of touchdowns. They were able to scheme and get the matchup they wanted, get him on a linebacker, get him on Sonny Styles. And while Sonny Styles has been a safety before, he's still a linebacker right now, and that's just not a favorable draw against a very talented running back coming out there that has a very developed route tree that he can operate under. So Ohio State did kind of fritter around at some points, did shoot itself in its foot, but credit to Texas. Texas had a great plan. They tripled Jeremiah Smith a lot of times. Oh, we're going to bracket him with three guys, and that allowed Emeka Ibuka, and that allowed Carnell Tate to have some opportunities. That allowed the tight end position with G. Scott Jr., Will Kasmerick to have some receptions in the game. You brought up in the lead into the question about what would have happened. Would Texas have gone for two potentially? That would have been interesting to see at that point, because there was still some time left on the clock. There was still a couple minutes left on the clock. And while Ohio State doesn't have all the faith in the world in its field goal kicking, that's about as sterile of an environment as you can get into in terms of no weather. Everything seems to be working well. I mean, the Texas, the Dallas Cowboys kicker is kicking them from 65 yards there. So obviously something is right. I don't know if that place is the highest point in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex and you have the elevation or something, but it would have been something there. And I also wanted to add too, Ohio State probably could have thrown on an additional garbage touchdown. How much further could Caleb Downs have taken that interception at the end of the game? I mean, he really could have. He had a chance to maybe pop it, to be quite honest, because Ohio State had all the juice in the world, and Texas was probably pretty demoralized at that very second.
Yeah, and it is crazy that if you would have saw the stats and see that Jeremiah Smith had one catch, you would have been like, wow. I mean, and really even some of the rushing stats, you would have been like, oh, whoa, how did this happen? I guess Ohio State must have lost. But still, Howard was able to throw for 286 yards outside of Jeremiah Smith. And you mentioned some of those players. And it just proves that this is how talented the Buckeyes are, is that, yes, it'd be great. And I'm sure Notre Dame is going to look at the film and try to do the same thing. But some of these other guys definitely have to come up big. Did you think that it was just the way that the game went? And I know that there was a lot of criticism in the Michigan game about trying to run the ball too much. Oh, you got to throw the ball, open it up. And I'm not saying that they were wrong in saying that. But when I look at the box score, is it just one of those things where the stats are misleading? Or do you think that, Trevion Henderson just getting 6 carries just wasn't enough?
You look, Ohio State attempted 33 passes. Ohio State had 24 runs. Ohio State just didn't have a lot of offensive plays.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's just kind of the breakdown. And I'm not even going to sit there and say that's necessarily a time and possession thing. I'm just going to say it's just the way that, things were. Texas did present some light boxes, and Ohio State had mixed successes there. And, and if we really want to kind of look at the numbers of the 289 passing yards, let's not forget 75 of them were on one play on that screenplay.
That's true.
In the first half there. And I'm not going to sit there and say, well, he only had 214 yards outside of that. But, that's still pretty darn good for what was going on against the Texas defense that everybody was saying significantly better than Tennessee, significantly better than Oregon. And they may not be wrong. And we're probably saying at this point, the Notre Dame defense is significantly better than the Texas defense because, the devil we know against the devil we don't know and everything else. But, I put a lot of it on what Texas presented there. Texas was going to sit there and make Ohio State throw everything in front of them. They had a lot of too high safety look out there, and there just weren't a lot of opportunities of where guys were singled. You were having to throw a little bit underneath the coverage. And I wasn't in love with all of Ohio State's play calls. I'm not nearly as qualified as Ryan Day or Chip Kelly or even the guy that washes the uniform tops. I'm not that close to football to be able to sit there and say, well, this is what I would have done. But didn't love every play that I saw out there, but it was more than enough. And again, if they don't have that Trevion Henderson personal foul when they did, do they march down and score on that drive? And then if you sit there and you get up 14-0, is it Katie bar the door again? Because you sit there and you have the momentum, and momentum means so much in terms of this. And if you're completing those passes, Will Howard was throwing into the tightest of windows early in the game.
Yes.
And we're sitting up in the football press box, which is in the corner on the roof, and it's still a really nice view. But we're like, ooh, that's no, he completed that. Well, I'll be damned.
I know. I was about to talk about that. I know he's not. a quarterback that everybody's looking at regarding the draft, but he is going to the Senior Bowl, and he is going to be someone now that when you're looking at these big game situations is, there's dearth of talent in the NFL at the quarterback position. This kid's got a lot of experience. He's mobile. And if he could throw the ball anywhere nearly as effective as he did in that game, well, that's pretty damn good. So now I think what happened was, and now I don't know if it was the pressure or what, but it was almost like I think he was getting away with it so much that interception was maybe like kind of like the last straw. It was like, you were playing things so tightly that you just can't, every pass can't be perfect. And he kind of jammed it in there. Probably shouldn't have. But again, like you said, Texas also, the other team plays. The other team is a good team. That was a big play for them. But yeah, Will Howard sure did play, I think, and his passes were as good as I've seen him play.
Yeah, and I didn't get to talk to Will about this post game, but I truly believe he didn't see the underneath guy. I mean, it was into triple coverage, but it was the underneath guy. I think that if he threw it and that you take that underneath guy out of play and he's still double covered, I still think he completes it. I mean, if you go back and you really watch it, but he didn't see that he got baited a little bit, didn't see the guy underneath, and as they say, something happens, and it happened there, and Ohio State was able to to withstand it, but Texas certainly gave everybody a lot of concerns, and I think that we're going to sit there and look back at that goal line stand through the years, and that's going to be something that's going to be on the permanent clip reel.
Yeah, and I don't give props to the analysts, the hosts, very often because most of the time they don't do a good job. But who does the game with Herbstreit? Is that Fowler?
Fowler.
Yeah, and for him to point out Ohio State's defense, goal line defense, just at that time was really a great job by him. He set the stage beautifully, and then all of a sudden Ohio State delivered exactly what he had said. Now, you could say, I'm sure Texas fans would probably go, just like you said with the play calling, how on earth do you call a pitch play at the 1 yard line with that defense? Are you kidding me? You got what you deserved, and you went -5. And then, of course, that was it. Once you went backwards, you were pretty much done. But Jack Sawyer, he comes up, and to me, he just seemed like, and I've seen these types of players at Ohio State before, linebacker especially, nice player. Yeah, maybe he's going to be a pretty decent pro. But then all of a sudden, you got the Michigan game, you got this game, and now all of a sudden, he's turning into a big-time playmaker. And I am starting to wonder just how high his ceiling could be at the next level.
He's going to test really well at the combine too. I'm just spoiler alert. He will test very well at the NFL scouting combine in Indianapolis. Follow that up, if he needs to do some stuff at Ohio State Pro Day. But yeah, he's made himself a lot of money here at the end of this season. He came on, had a really big game against Missouri in a game that most Ohio State fans want to forget about. So that's kind of forgotten about, that he had a big game against Missouri. Ohio State kind of maybe a little malpractice with him, moving him to the jack position for a year. Then it took a lot of time. They moved him back to a traditional end. They had to deprogram a lot of that stuff. I think they kind of stunted his development by doing that, but I digress. But yeah, he made some tremendous plays, but you talk about the pitch play, and that's going to be the one that gets overshadowed where, Caleb Downs, great instinct, has a free run at the quarterback, forces him out wider. And then you have Lathan Ransom, who comes in and grabs him and gets him by the leg. And Davison Igbinosun comes in and helps clean up the tackle at that point. And that takes the run off the table at that point. But, Texas did try to run at the defense. Ohio State has a bare front there. Bring in big bodies like Edric Houston, bring in big bodies like Caden McDonald, and they weren't able to get anywhere. You're not going to generally be able to slam those in those types of situations. I mean, what happens there is you become very, very susceptible to, a tight end release and being able to find them in the back of the end zone. They decided not to do that. Then you get into third down, they throw it into the corner of the end zone, just non-connection. And then, of course, the fourth down that will play on forever. That is certainly probably in the top 3 or 4 most memorable defensive plays in Ohio State history, and probably certainly in the top 5 or 6 in plays, period.
Talk about injury situation for Ohio State as we wrap up with this preview here going into the Notre Dame game. But how are the guys coming out of the Texas game?
Denzel Burke, defensive back, did not play the second half. That was just kind of a coach's decision, upper extremity injury. He will be fine, according to Ryan Day, as of Sunday. You had injuries with guys being treated, including Cody Simon and JT Tuimoloau. You saw him come out with a heavy tape job on one of his feet for ankle. He played it out, certainly was in a lot of pain. You're not going to be able to keep him out. And Simon came back. He was able to play as well. So nobody's healthy at this point. I mean, we know that. It's such a big cliche about, oh, how healthy are you? Oh, I'm 100%. Like, hell you are. You're 45%, but the guy lining up across from you may be 47%. So there's nothing that I'm aware of at this point. I mean, we're talking maybe a little earlier in the game week right now than we normally would. So, I reserve the right to sit there and be like, oh, I didn't know that one, but I'm expecting him to be as full go as possible.
Yeah, I'm going to get the opportunity tomorrow to talk to Kyle Kelly at blueandgold.com. We've been having the same kind of run that you and I have had. And I know, of course, the Irish, they have been dealing with some really big injuries. So there's no question that Notre Dame is going to have more important players out of this game. It started with Morrison and a few other players, key players. And then just recently, of course, you had Riley Mills, their top defensive lineman. And then now it looks like their top offensive lineman, and one of their top offensive linemen, even though he's a young kid, will miss the game as well. So they're dealing with some really key guys that are out. But what do you think about this Notre Dame matchup? Because I'm looking at this in one of two ways. I look at this as I just get the feeling that maybe Notre Dame is just scratched and clawed, and it's been great coaching, and they've just found ways to win. But now it's Ohio State, and they're just so much more talented, and maybe they battle and hang tough for a little bit, but by the second half, the better team is just going to just go off, and it's not going to be close. Or this Notre Dame thing that's going on, where they just, again, keep finding the ways, no matter who they play, to win, and they make these plays, and they make the other team make stupid plays, because that's what's been going on. The dumb call by Georgia to go to try and do something at the end of the first half killed the entire game. And then I thought it was a bad decision by Franklin to have Drew Aller. Let's see if we can move the ball down the field. We haven't moved the ball down the field with our passing game the entire game, but let's try to do it now with 40 seconds to go and put all the pressure on a 20-year-old kid. That didn't work out very well. So that's the kind of way I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it one way or the other. Well, how about you?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump back to the injuries, and I'll get to that. Let's not forget, it's also when the injuries happen. Ohio State's lost 2 offensive linemen, lost their center who won the Hermanson Award, lost Josh Simmons, left tackle, who probably was an all-conference level performer. So it happens. I mean, and you're going to have fan bases, regardless of who, what, when, where, why, are going to sit there and point out, well, our injuries were worse, our injuries were more recent. So It is what it is.
Thank you for reminding us. Yes, or me at least.
You look at the last 3 games, the CFP games for Notre Dame, and as I'm starting to write my previews, I'm really kind of considering scratching everything prior to the CFP, because it really is a new season, in my opinion. And they've won those 3 games by the average of a little bit under 9 points per game. And you beat an Indiana team that a lot of people feel shouldn't have been on the playoffs in the first place. And honestly, that game was not really a 10-point game. It's more like a 17-point game or more, because Indiana came back late in garbage time. You beat a Georgia team that was down its starting quarterback and a bunch of other issues, and couldn't run the ball, and really kind of, took on water. It was not the 12th best passing team in the nation. I promise you, it was not the 12th best passing team in the nation. Then you beat Penn State, quote unquote, big game James, all the issues there that they have in those types of games. Now, I'm not taking a darn thing away from Notre Dame and what it's been able to accomplish. We always joke about field goal defense when you sit there and teams just can't seem to kick field goals against you. But is that really a statistic? Is coaching forcing teams to make stupid calls? Is that really? I mean, that's such an intangible. I don't really know how to quantify that one. Ohio State's certainly much more decisive in 2 of its games, and then the third game, going into, quote unquote, the belly of the beast, having to play Texas in Dallas and everything else. And, there was a lot of adversity there, and maybe having to face that type of adversity helps Ohio State. I'm I'm not to the point of making a prediction, and I certainly don't like sitting there giving the answer before showing my work, but, it's kind of the way that it's working right now is, I think it's the previous scenario you mentioned, not the latter. I think it's gonna be a thing of where Notre Dame is going to come in, and it's going to be a I think it's gonna be oh boy, pretty exciting first half, and then I think that Ohio State's experience and just amount of talent
Oh yeah.
is going to go in, and it's going to be a case of where Ohio State probably wins it by a couple of scores, and that's not being disrespectful of
No.
Notre Dame. That's not saying that they can't hang, but Riley Leonard is not a consistent passer. And I'm not saying that he's necessarily as green as somebody like Nico was for Tennessee. I mean, Riley Leonard's been in college football for a long time. None of this is new to him. I mean, maybe playing in a championship game is new to him, but so if they can't throw the ball and they can only run, and Ohio State can try and load up on the run, I'm not exactly sure that Notre Dame's going to be able to slow the Ohio State offense down to less than, in the mid 30s. And I don't like a team being able to sit there and say that they're going to be able to run against Ohio State. Ohio State's run defenses, I'm looking here, is number 3 in the nation. It's allowing less than 90 yards per game. It's just not really a great matchup for Notre Dame, no matter what, some of the, biggest fans of Notre Dame are saying that Ohio State's a better matchup for them than Penn State, which, I'm not buying.
No, no, come on. Yeah, because like you said too, and if you just look at the Penn State game, Penn State was really able to run the football, and it took their coaching staff a little while to figure that out. I don't know what they were waiting for. They were getting 5 yards, 10 yards, 15 yards, and then they're mixing in throws. Well, stop mixing throws and just run the damn football. Uh, and then by the time they figured it out, it might have been too late. But we know if Penn State can run the football, well, then we know Ohio State can run the football as well. And that's why, and we look, Notre Dame's got a very good secondary, probably just on par like Texas. So, but why? So this is going to be interesting because again, we just talked about a little bit more throwing. Maybe it had a lot to do with play calls. I mean, the amount of plays, and I completely get that. But I'm going to be very interested to see exactly what they do here because, in my opinion, from what I just saw, I think Ohio State should try to follow the game plan that was successful for Penn State and run the football early to set up the pass.
Yeah, which is the type of offense that Ohio State fans hated seeing because Ohio State really did kind of struggle toward the end of the regular season in running the ball. You sit there. I mean, Ohio State ran for 77 against Michigan, 115 against Indiana. Those certainly were some low water marks. I mean, Ohio State did have a stretch of where it was hitting the 170 mark or whatever. And I think we're kind of spoiled with numbers today. We kind of get into game numbers. Oh, if you're not running for 250, you're not getting it done. Well, let me tell you, Ohio State only broke 250 rushing yards twice. Once was against Marshall, and once was against Iowa, and that was it. So, I mean, that's not maybe the DNA of Ohio State, but I think you run to set up the pass. I don't think Notre Dame's not going to be able to triple Jeremiah Smith. You're just not going to be able to get away with doing that. People will say, well, why not? I mean, but it's just I don't think that Notre Dame has the front that Texas did, and I think that if you sit there and you lighten up the box at that point, Ohio State is just going to torch you.
Yeah.
At that point, we've not really seen the home run out of Quinshon Judkins like we did a little bit earlier in the season. I think that he's got a full tank. I think TreVeyon Henderson, he certainly has a full tank. I think that that's going to be problematic there. I think that Ohio State's really going to hammer into the offense. Let's not just try to be forcing it into Jeremiah Smith. If it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. But I really think that the safeties are going to have to walk up a little bit, and they're going to have to have some dudes in the box, and that's just going to create some situations there. And something that we haven't even really talked about. Notre Dame is a man team. They particularly run man defense, and that's not good for them against what Ohio State's attack is. So, they have 10 days or whatever to kind of dust off the, some of the zone type of things and everything else, and, C2, C4, whatever you want to throw out there. But if that's not what you're necessarily doing, do you want to, if you're a zebra, do you want to change your stripes right now? I don't know about that.
Yeah. Again, good coaching staff, but you are limited with what you have. And I think this is the game where it catches up to them because, like you said, they don't have the pass rush because I think 3 of their key guys are no longer healthy and going to be available. But that's why you have to give them just a tremendous job of what they accomplished. And I think they accomplished as much as they can. But we'll see. Again, Ohio State has to play the game right. We just saw what happens if they have a couple of penalties and how that can completely change the complexion of a football game. So anything is possible. These are young kids. And as you talked about, momentum is true. It could change on a dime if something wrong goes on, if there's some sort of just something really negative happening on the sidelines for the Buckeyes or on the playing field. So, but look, the Buckeyes are a 9-point favorite or whatever it is for a reason. I think the point spread's a little bit higher even than I thought it would be, even though I would probably still go with Ohio State. And saying that, I just think they're just too good for Notre Dame. And Ohio State will hopefully, if you're a Buckeye fan watching this, be ready to celebrate another national championship. So I know you're going to cover this for another week. So you haven't made it's too early for you to make your last prediction. So let the viewers know what to look forward to as far as your coverage this week.
Yeah, I'm going to hit my usual pieces. I'm going to do a piece on 5 things Ohio State's offense needs to do in order to ensure victory, 5 things the defense needs to do. Now, obviously, I could be simplistic and say score more points or not allow as many points or whatever. We try to get a little more detailed than that. I will also have my member-only exclusive for Buckeye Huddle called Tale of the Tape, which is generally about a 4,000-word deep dive into the game, names, things like that. I'm pretty tired. We'll see if I get to 4,000 words this week. People should be like, you're going to get to 8,000 words because it's the biggest game. Well, I've said all of my words. I don't know what to say, but that is a member exclusive. So be sure to sign up for Buckeye Huddle, $4.99 for your first month. I will do my by the numbers. I will break down some numbers either in the series or Ohio State and championship games. And then, of course, I do my 3 shots, which are bold predictions that I make for the game. And maybe I will actually get one right. I came really close to getting 2 of my boldest ones right. I was 1 sack short. I had a defensive touchdown and 4 sacks. I said a defensive touchdown and 5 sacks as one of my predictions. And
that's
then
good though.
And then the other one, I don't know. I think it was Will Howard passing yards. I came up with like 296 or something, and it was 289. So I should get half credit, but we know Vegas doesn't give you half credit.
No, they don't, unfortunately.
So why the heck should I? And as of the morning of Monday morning, I've seen the line down to 8 at some places.
Okay. That could be possible. Absolutely. Like I said, I thought it was a little bit high when it first came out. And these types of games, there's only one of them. So there's a lot of money pouring in, changing the lines quickly. And I guess that's exactly what's going on. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up. We're going to have links in the description of this video for every way possible to follow Kevin and everything that he's going to be doing this week. We look forward to talking to Kevin again when the 2025 season begins. But hopefully, I know we went over it once before, but we might actually check in with you at least one more time before the draft, because there's going to be a ton of Ohio State players that are going to be coming out and trying to pick your brain and talk about these players. Might be a really good video. So maybe we'll get the opportunity to do that, Kevin. I really appreciate you taking your time to do this. I know you're very busy. It's been a crazy whirlwind for you, but hey, this is the good stuff, right? And if Ohio State can cap it off with the victory, then this is what you live for.
Absolutely. And I've enjoyed being on here and talking to your viewers. And definitely I plan on being in Indianapolis for the scouting combine. And
okay,
you know, if the draft board looks right, I might go up and cover the draft this year. I mean, at one point it looked like it was going to be a great Ohio State draft, and then things kind of started to fizzle out, and now it's kind of heating back up. And it's going to be interesting to see if Ohio State wins the national championship 4 quarters away. Could we see a lot of draft eligible juniors who were probably set to come back, just say, I got my ring, I got my everything else, let's just get on and start with it? So we could see a complete roster, rebuild, as Ohio State really already is a very senior laden team.
Who could give me a couple of players that you think might be making that decision?
I mean, I honestly, you asked me on all this too quick. I mean, I think you got some guys in the defensive backfield. I think you got some guys on the offensive line that could be doing that. Yeah, I've got a stat book in front of me with all of my Notre Dame numbers. I don't have the draft. I don't have the draft.
It's not a draft show.
I promise you, in 2 weeks, I will have turned my page over to the draft. I mean, this is January 13th, and I'm not really thinking about the draft. This is kind of
I hear you.
We're in strange times, my friend.
Hey, this is there's now, well, before the playoffs in the NFL, there were 18 fan bases that already started thinking about the draft. Same thing in college football. There were right now, there was everybody except Ohio State, Notre Dame fans are thinking about transfer portal and next year. So I hear you, but that's what you don't want to be talking about. You want to be talking about the playing game and the playing field in these games. And Ohio State would be in the national championship game a week from tonight. So best of luck, Kevin. And again, we hope to talk to you again real soon.
Sounds good.